Hello everyone. Today we shall discuss the regulatory mechanisms of renal blood flow and GFR, that is glomerulofiltration rate. They mainly include autoregulation, hormonal regulation and nervous regulation. Autoregulation. Autoregulation means to self-regulate. So whenever there is any change in the blood flow and GFR due to the change in pressure within the range of 80 to 170 mmHg, then the kidneys have an intrinsic ability. That is, they have an inbuilt ability to regulate these changes, and this mainly occurs by alteration of the vascular resistance, mainly of the afferent arteriole. Now this is not a perfect mechanism, so slight variation can occur, and several other hormones and factors can also change renal blood flow and GFR despite these autoregulation mechanisms. Significance of autoregulation. Now, as we know that there are various causes, various physiological causes which cause change in blood pressure, like when we stand, when we sit, or when we sleep, when we eat. All these are the physiological causes of changes in the blood pressure. So if will be a slight change in the blood pressure, and if there is no autoregulation, then it will cause a significant change in the GFR. For example, at 100 mmHg, we have a normal GFR of 180 liters per day, which results in 1 liter of urine in a day. Now suppose if there is a rise in BP by 25% and it rises to 125 mmHg, then the GFR rises to 225 liters per day. If these autoregulatory mechanisms are not working, which will result in 46 liters per day of urine. So this is the significance of autoregulation. This graph mainly shows the range where the autoregulation is working. On the x-axis, we have the mean arterial pressure in mmHg. On the y-axis, on left side, we have the renal blood flow in ml per minute. On the right side, we have the GFR. Then in the graph, it is shown that when there is a change in pressure from 50 to 80, then the renal blood flow and GFR both rise steeply. But then there is a plateau in both renal blood flow and GFR graph between the range of 80 to 170 mmHg due to the autoregulatory mechanism. Now the red circles denote the arteriole diameter. So as we can see, initially when the pressure is less, then these arterioles are dilated and hence the lumen is more. But as the pressure rises, there is vasoconstriction of arteriole to reduce or to regulate these GFR and renal blood flow at the higher pressure. So the lumen reduces in size and hence the red circle also thickens, and the central part which denotes the lumen has reduced. Next. Now the mechanisms of autoregulation. Mainly there are two mechanisms which are responsible for autoregulation. First is the myogenic mechanism. Second is the tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. Now the myogenic mechanism is due to the change in the blood, is a response to change in blood pressure or the arterial pressure, and the tubuloglomerular feedback works in response to changes in the sodium chloride load in the tubules. Myogenic mechanism. Myo means muscle, so it is a mechanism which will be regulated by the muscle. Now the smooth muscles of the vascular smooth muscle, like when we consider the afferent arteriole, so in the above diagram it is shown that in the center we have the glomerulus, and from the left side afferent arteriole is entering. Now it is bringing blood, that is renal blood flow, which results in a pressure on the glomerulus and there is formation of an ultrafiltrate because of all the filtration which occurs through it. Now, when the renal blood flow will increase, then there will be an increase in the hydrostatic pressure. So, due to which fluid will be more pushed outwards. Now, this will result in stretching of the muscles and the stretch receptors will be stimulated and they would cause vasoconstriction, as we can see in the bottom diagram now that the afferent arteriole has vasoconstricted. So its lumen has reduced and due to the constriction the renal blood flow will reduce and hence the hydrostatic pressure will reduce. So the GFR will also reduce. Now the mechanism behind it is that whenever there is an increased arterial pressure, stretching will occur which will result in increase in the calcium permeability. So intracellular calcium will rise and as the calcium rises it will cause the contraction of the muscle. So there will be an increased vascular resistance and this will limit the blood flow and hence the blood pressure will also be regulated. Next. Now here how the mechanism is occurring differently in the afferent and efferent arteriole is discussed. So in the topmost diagram it is shown a baseline. Baseline means at rest, that on the left side we have the afferent arteriole, in the center we have the glomerulus and on the right side we have the efferent arteriole. Now the blood is flowing directly from the afferent arteriole and enters into the glomerulus from which the ultrafiltrate is formed and then it enters into the efferent arteriole. So constant renal blood flow, constant hydrostatic pressure of the glomerulus and a constant GFR. Now the changes which occur in the afferent arteriole. Now when there is a constriction of the afferent arteriole, as we can see on the bottom left diagram, afferent arteriole has constricted, so its lumen will reduce. Now the blood that was entering through it into the glomerulus will also reduce. Now since the blood has reduced, so obviously the fluid which was entering through it will also reduce. So the hydrostatic pressure, that is the PGC, will also reduce and hence the GFR will also reduce. So on constriction of afferent arteriole, there is reduction in renal blood flow, hydrostatic pressure of glomerular capillaries and GFR. Now what happens on dilatation? Now on the bottom right, it is shown that when the afferent arteriole is dilated, so as we can see the lumen has increased, so on dilation the amount of renal blood flow will increase. Now when the renal blood flow will increase, then the amount of hydrostatic pressure will also increase. So more amount of filtrate will be formed and hence GFR will also increase. Next. Now what happens on constriction in the efferent arteriole? Now in the efferent arteriole there is a slight different thing. So it will vary whether there is a mild constriction or there is a severe constriction. So when there is a mild constriction in the efferent arteriole, so as you can see the outflow has reduced. So outflow, that is on the right, on the topmost left diagram, we are showing the mild constriction. So on mild constriction, efferent arteriole is shown on the right side of the glomerulus. So when it is constricted mildly, then the amount of renal blood flow will reduce. That is, the blood passing through it will reduce. Now since, as you can also correlate, like when we are watering the plants and when you press the pipe, then the amount of water coming out through it or the pressure with which it is coming out increases. So similarly, when we have constricted the outflow, that is the efferent arteriole, although renal blood flow has reduced, but the pressure will increase. So there will be an increase in the hydrostatic pressure of the glomerular capillaries, which will result in an increase in the GFR. But on extreme constriction, like on the top right diagram, it is shown that when you constrict it severely, now the outflow has reduced, so obviously renal blood flow will also reduce. But here, due to the extreme constriction, the plasma that was present in the glomerulus, from which the ultrafiltrate was forming, will be there for a more prolonged time. Since it is there for a more prolonged time, so the amount that will be filtered through it will increase. Now, since the amount which is filtered is increased, and we know that glomerulofiltration barrier is not permeable to proteins. So since it is not permeable to proteins, so the colloid oncotic pressure will increase in the glomerular capillaries. Now when the colloid oncotic pressure increases, so GFR will reduce. As we know that colloid oncotic pressure is an inhibiting factor for the GFR. So the GFR will reduce on extreme constriction. Now what happens on dilation of the efferent arteriole? On the bottom right, it is shown that when the efferent arteriole is dilated, then the renal blood flow increases. So the hydrostatic pressure reduces because the outflow has increased. So all the blood is easily passing out through the efferent arteriole. So obviously the hydrostatic pressure will reduce and hence the GFR reduces. Next. So this is just a schematic diagram to depict what I had discussed just now. In the center we have the glomerulus. On the left side we have a light shaded area depicting the afferent arteriole, and on the right side we have a dark pink area depicting the efferent arteriole. On the A diagram there is constriction of the afferent arteriole, which results in decreased renal blood flow, hydrostatic pressure and GFR. In the B diagram, there is dilation of the afferent arteriole, which will result in increased renal blood flow, hydrostatic pressure of the glomerular capillaries and GFR. On the C diagram, it is just shown the mild constriction of the efferent arteriole, and on the D diagram, it is showing the dilatation of the efferent arteriole. Next. Now, this is the graph which is showing the relation between GFR and renal blood flow as there is change in the afferent and efferent arteriole resistance. On the topmost graph, on the x-axis, we have the efferent arteriole resistance. On the y-axis, on left side, we have GFR. And on the right side, we have renal blood flow. Now, as we can see that as the efferent arteriole resistance is rising, initially there is an increase in the GFR, but when the arteriole resistance is more than twice the normal, now the GFR starts to decline. That is, on the severe constriction, there is a fall in the GFR. But the renal blood flow continues to decline even with the mild constriction of the efferent arteriole, shown by the blue curve. On the bottom curve, it is shown changes in the afferent arteriole resistance. So red curve is for the GFR and blue curve is for the renal blood flow, and here it is depicting that even with the milder increase in the resistance, that is on the mild constriction to severe constriction, both GFR and renal blood flow continue to decline. And when the resistance is 1 times the normal, that is it is 1, then both GFR and renal blood flow are normal. Next. Now the tubuloglomerular feedback. Tubuloglomerular feedback is mainly based on the sodium chloride loop concentration. And as we had discussed that in the juxtaglomerular apparatus, macula densa is a chemoreceptor which will sense the sodium chloride concentration, and it will further provide signal to the afferent arteriole. So it is mainly to ensure a constant delivery of sodium chloride to the distal tubule to prevent fluctuations in the renal excretion. Now it mainly has two components. First is the afferent arteriole feedback mechanism, and second is the efferent arteriolar feedback mechanism. Next. Now here it is shown that on the A side, whenever there is an increase in the renal arterial pressure, so when the renal arterial pressure will increase, as we had discussed, GFR will increase and the renal blood flow will increase. Now since the GFR, that is glomerular filtration rate, has increased, so more amount of sodium chloride will be filtered. Now this increased sodium chloride will be sensed by macula densa. Now this will cause a feedback effect and it will result in the constriction of the afferent arteriole. And as we had just discussed, in the myogenic mechanism, when there is constriction of afferent arteriole, it causes a decline in the GFR and renal blood flow. So there will be a negative feedback and both GFR and renal blood flow will reduce. On the B flow chart, it is shown just the opposite. That is when there is a decrease in the blood pressure, both GFR and renal blood flow will reduce. Again, the sodium chloride concentration will reduce. Now this will be sensed by macula densa cells. So it will cause a feedback effect and there will be dilatation of the afferent arteriole, which will further cause an increase in the GFR and renal blood flow. Next. Now the mechanism behind this tubuloglomerular feedback is, now in the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, there is a sodium potassium 2 chloride pump. As shown on the left side in the center, we have these thick ascending limb epithelial cells which are specialized at the junction of the vascular pole to form macula densa. Now they have this special pump, that is sodium potassium 2 chloride, present near the apical membrane, that is the membrane which faces the tubular fluid. So on the left side we have sodium potassium 2 chloride, and on the right side of the cell, that is the membrane or the basolateral membrane, which is facing the interstitium or towards the afferent arteriole, we have this sodium potassium pump. Now when there is an increased delivery of sodium chloride, this will enter inside the cell through sodium potassium 2 chloride pump. Now the gradient will be generated by the sodium potassium ATPase pump. So initially the sodium potassium ATPase pump will work, which will pump out 3 sodium into the interstitium, 2 potassium inside the cell, and due to this ATPase activity, there will be cleavage of ATP and adenosine will be released. Now when there is more delivery of sodium chloride, so more activity of this pump, sodium potassium pump, and the amount of adenosine will increase. This adenosine will enter into the interstitium and it will act on A1 receptors or the adenosine 1 receptors, which are present on the vascular smooth muscle cells. Now when these A1 receptors are stimulated, there will be an increased calcium entry inside the vascular smooth muscles, and this will result in constriction of the arterioles, and the amount of renin release will also reduce and there will be vasoconstriction. So what we had discussed in the flow chart in the earlier slide, the mechanism behind it is this. Also, there will be stimulation of P2X receptors. These are prostaglandin receptors. Next. Now the hormonal regulation. So hormonal regulation, we have vasoconstrictors and vasodilators. Vasoconstrictors are norepinephrine, angiotensin II, and endothelin. They will cause a decrease in the renal blood flow. And the vasodilators are prostaglandins, PGI2 and E2, nitric oxide, bradykinin, atrial natriuretic peptide, glucocorticoids, dopamine and histamine. They cause an increase in the renal blood flow. Next. Now, hormones and autocords that influence GFR are same norepinephrine, epinephrine, endothelin cause a decrease in the GFR. Now, angiotensin II prevents a fall in the GFR. So mainly it acts on both afferent and efferent arteriole, and its action is more pronounced on the efferent arteriole, and it actually prevents a fall in the GFR. Then endothelial derived nitric oxide causes an increase in the GFR by vasodilatation, and prostaglandins also cause an increase in the GFR. Next. Now the nervous regulation. So innervation parasympathetic is by vagus, but its function is uncertain. Sympathetic is mainly from T10 to L2. From T10 to L2 preganglionic fibers. Their ganglion are situated in the superior mesenteric ganglia. Then the postganglionic fibers are carried by renal nerves, and they are mainly distributed to afferent and efferent arterioles and the cells of the renal tubule and also of the juxtaglomerular cells. So when they are supplying the JG cells, on their stimulation, there will be an increased renin release. Next. So under normal conditions, sympathetic tone is minimum. Mild to moderate usually has mild effect because of the autoregulation, because within the range of 80 to 170 mmHg, we have the autoregulatory mechanisms working. But if there is a strong stimulation, it will cause vasoconstriction, and hence there will be a fall in the renal blood flow. And this effect is mainly mediated by alpha-1 receptors and to some extent by postsynaptic alpha-2 receptors. Now the other factors are high protein intake increases the renal blood flow, and the increased blood glucose also increases renal blood flow. Now this is because when you have a higher protein intake, then the amount that will be filtered through the glomerulus will also increase. Now for the absorption of protein and glucose, we require sodium. So in the PCT, that is in the proximal convoluted tubule, maximum reabsorption occurs. So when there is higher protein intake or a higher amount of blood glucose, maximum reabsorption of these will occur in the PCT, and for them to be reabsorbed, sodium will also be reabsorbed along with them due to the presence of sodium glucose cotransporters or the sodium amino acid cotransporters in the PCT. So the amount of sodium in the tubule will be reduced, so amount of sodium chloride delivery to the macula densa will be reduced. So when the amount of sodium chloride delivery will be reduced, so there will be less amount of ATP cleavage, so less amount of adenosine will be released, and hence vasoconstriction will not occur, so there will be increased renal blood flow.